Welcome to Sara Gonzales Unfiltered. Well, I regret to inform you that the moron brigades continued at college campuses across the country last night. And after the anti-Israel protesters took over a building on Columbia University's campus, which, I believe we call an insurrection, they had a spokesperson come out by the name of Joanna King-Slutsky, which is unfortunate for her. And she held a press conference in which this dumbass with a completely straight face is like, yeah, we may be engaging in illegal acts and trespassing and vandalism and completely disrupting everyone else's day, but we demand food and water. Watch.
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying,
Ms. Slutsky, your thoughts?
We want to be revolutionaries. We want to take over this building. Now would you please bring us food and water?
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food?
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it
but
violently.
They haven't stopped it yet.
I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
We know you don't know much of anything, ma'am. I'd love to know if that guy behind her, raided his little sister's drawer to get that crop top, and if he has tried going over to Palestine dressed like that. Now, here's a little spoiler alert for how that went. At Columbia, police began barricading the protesters in the building to ensure that they couldn't get away. And I think these little terrorists finally realized that they were about to F around and find out. Here's a little bit of that.
They just barricaded us in.
They're laughing.
No way.
I can't say
It's finals. Can I go home?
Oh, no, you have finals and you want to go home. Oh, no, that's so terrible for you. So once secured, NYPD entered the building through a second-story window and arrested nearly 50 people inside the building and another 173 at a campus nearby. Oh, my gosh. Hold on. Can I get a Kleenex for the tears that I'm not shedding for these people? And so that's how that ended for them. But over at UCLA, violence escalated overnight after counter-protesters set up shop right outside the pro-Palestine encampment barriers and began, playing the national anthem, blaring sirens, and that did not stay peaceful for long. I want to play a look at some of the fighting that happened overnight, which included hurling objects at one another and pepper spraying. Watch.
Sprayed again.
I want to welcome to the show the man whose footage I just played, independent journalist Anthony Cabassa. He was on the ground all night into the early hours of the morning. Anthony, thanks so much for joining me today. So I want you to walk me through what all transpired last night, because it looked like there was a lot going on from your footage.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, for having me on. Big fan, and one day, hopefully, I'll be in the studio.
I would love that.
But It was really insane. I'd actually never seen anything like it. I've been covering protests for about 7 years now, from Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment protests to the George Floyd riots, or as people call it, the Summer of Love, the January 6th, Capitol and stuff. So I've been a long time veteran of covering protests and documenting. But what I saw last night at UCLA is like nothing I've ever seen before. Usually what you're used to seeing, especially during the Summer of Love, is police kind of against protesters. But you have a sense of a feeling of who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, because obviously the police are wearing the uniform, they have law and order as much as they can, and then you have the counter protesters trying their best to kind of disorient the police officers they're heading up against. But what I saw last night is like nothing I've ever seen. We had basically the pro-Palestine encampment of folk that for days now have been left unchecked by the school administration and basically given the keys to the school public areas and authorized to basically make of it as they will. They have been illegally blockading student access to the campus and specific parts. They have to vet everyone thoroughly. You are given wristbands. If you're pro-Zionist or if you're pro-Israel, you're not given a wristband, and you are restricted to where you're able to enter on the campus. And so very anti-First Amendment, very unconstitutional all around. But what I saw starting around 10 p.m. is the security that was hired by the school were ordered to stand down once some of the tensions began to rise. It all kind of started when both sides kind of started macing each other from the barrier that was in the middle. The security ended up getting caught in the crossfire. A lot of security guards were actually maced. And what ended up happening with that is it made the security leave. Why? Because they had no real means to protect themselves. And I mean, you can just imagine there was maybe 20 to 30 security there with no way of defending anything. And you had hundreds of protesters and counter protesters, and violence just erupted. Now, what made it even worse is that for hours, the city, the school, LAPD, Mayor Karen Bass failed to act. For hours, these two factions were just allowed complete anarchy, lawlessness. There were bodies being dragged. There was the reports of armed people in the library in case the counter protesters were able to break through. They were looking to take immediate action.
Oh my gosh.
It was just absolutely insane. The entire night, students on the sidelines, everyone's asking themselves, where the heck is the city? Where is the school's response? Where is LAPD? But we didn't see a police response for, I think, if I'm not mistaken, over 5 hours it took for the police to finally arrive. And it was just complete chaos. I'm telling you, Sarah, I've never seen anything like this before. And this is probably going to be lawsuit after lawsuit. I don't know how UCLA survives the onslaught of lawsuits that are about to descend on them for allowing this to happen for such a long time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, from what I'm hearing from you, I certainly hope that there is lawsuit after lawsuit, because it sounds like they failed some of these people who were assaulted. But so I want to get this straight. So the police don't show up for obviously an extended amount of time. And then I did see a video that you had of the police finally showing up in riot gear. Once they showed up,
Correct.
Did they immediately spring into action, or did they wait longer?
They actually waited longer. It was probably another 30 minutes to an hour or so before they actually finally started moving in to completely separate. Police were actually present for upwards of 30 minutes while they continued the violence. There was a man that, with the police presence there and the security watch, here's the crazy part. The security was standing on the steps of the school watching everything. And when I asked them, why aren't you doing anything? They kind of looked at me like, dude, we are security. What do you expect of us? But they were actually ordered to stand down. So the school actually told them, you will remain on the sideline. Do not interfere. Do not try to break anything up, which I think is kind of understandable. You're hired security. I think the most you have maybe is like a mace. But at that point, everyone's macing each other. The mace wasn't really going to do much. But it was just chaotic. But with police present there was actually a pro-Palestinian encampment guy that ended up getting smashed over the head with a metal bar, head cracked open. All of that happening with security watching just watching, not saying anything. They just watched the guy get beat, and then the police were just there.
Wow.
They were watching from afar, but they just never moved in. So I would say upwards of a half an hour. We're still. We had small skirmishes, people getting beat over the head, people being dragged away. Again, like nothing I've ever seen. It's just absolute failure on the city's part, to be honest.
Yeah, the inmates are clearly running the asylum. So I also saw some footage that you had that I think we can play as we're talking here, of the pro-Palestinian group that was like practicing combat before dusk. Is that so? It seems to me like they kind of planned on violence happening at a certain point because they're like practicing their Krav Maga or whatever the hell they were doing.
Yeah, so what ended up happening, so the footage you're playing now is drone footage that I was able to retrieve. And this actually happened after the UCLA chancellor sent out an email saying that they had deemed the encampment finally, after days, if not, a week plus, that they had deemed the encampment unlawful, and that if they did not leave the area, that LAPD would be called to basically start making arrests. This was messages that I was able to retrieve from the private Telegram community of this encampment, that's how they used to communicate to each other what they need, supplies, any kind of alerts. So they actually alerted their people that the encampment had been deemed unlawful and that they needed to start preparing to head on with police that evening. So there were some reports that we received that it seemed last night police were going to move in to clear the encampment before 11 o'clock at night, but that was not the case. And it seemed it was because the school was willing to, for whatever reason, negotiate with the encampment and kind of come to a agreement of surrender and avoiding any kind of further escalation. And so the report was that police were coming that night. So I was able to get in there with a drone, and yeah, they were practicing hand-to-hand combat to just head on with police. This is something that I've seen over and over again by these type of groups in previous protests and riots. Whenever they have like these little chops or little encampment areas, this is what they do. When they know that the police are coming, they start training with shields, with weapons. They teach each other how to prevent, getting sprayed on. They distribute gear, gloves, masks, goggles. They tell people this is what you need to brace yourself for. But by all means, they had every intention of being violent that night, as clearly evidenced by the drone footage. Why else would you be practicing hand-to-hand combat if you weren't preparing for some type of skirmish? I just don't think anyone expected it to escalate to that degree of violence.
Yeah, I agree. So I have to ask you, Anthony, while I have you, I haven't been able to talk to anyone that's on the ground as close as you were. We talk about on this program, I watched this footage of these people and I'm like, it must smell terribly around them. I picture them as smelling very bad. Can you confirm or deny that?
I was able to get close enough where I was able to get a whiff of the body odor, and the reports were that these people had been using buckets as bathrooms. And so let's just say, yeah, exactly. And so let's just say that when I was that up close and personal with them, it didn't smell nice. Let's just put it that way.
You're much nicer than I am, Anthony. Well, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your work so much because, look, as with the Summer of Love, we're finding that the mainstream media doesn't want to get out there, put themselves in harm's way to show the American public what is actually going on at whatever these, protests that are turning into violent riots are. So I appreciate your work, appreciate what you do. And not only would I like you to come back soon, but yes, next time you're in Dallas, let me know and you can come in studio.
Absolutely, Sarah. I'd be honored to. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Talk soon. All right. So I want to play very quickly, and then we're going to bring in the panel on this topic. We have our welfare check line where we want to hear from you, and I want to play one that is on this subject. Actually, all of these pro-Palestinian protesters.
Hey, I've just been watching your show a lot, and a lot of the Blaze TV, but I haven't seen anybody talking about this yet. But just thought I'd bring this up. How come before you could label these churchgoers or parents going to school board meetings and everything as domestic terrorists. But these college kids and stuff like that are destroying the campuses and, pro, terrorism, basically, they're not being labeled as domestic terrorists at all.
Well, that changes today. Let's just call them what they are, which is domestic terrorists. Because again, to your point, if you can say that moms showing up at school boards angry that you're showing their child pornographic literature can be labeled domestic terrorists, I think that we can go ahead and safely assume that these people are very much actual domestic terrorists. Thank you for your call. All right. So we've got more to get into. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Mobile. So for over a decade now, Patriot Mobile has been America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. And look, here's the great thing about Patriot Mobile. If you are still with Big Mobile, they are taking a portion of your bill and they're donating it to left-leaning causes that you are, if you're watching this program, you're probably fighting against. Not so with Patriot Mobile, because what they're doing is they're going to take a portion of your bill and they are going to fund causes that you believe in. They have been so instrumental in flipping school boards to conservative. Okay. They have been down at the border helping fight sex trafficking with Yakubuyans. They are truly putting their money where their mouth is because they are grassroots. They are in the game just like we are, and they can offer you dependable nationwide coverage. They're going to give you the ability to access all three major networks, except, you're not going to be funding the left. So if you believe in things like religious freedom, the sanctity of life, the Second Amendment, and free speech, might I suggest you check out patriotmobile.com. They've got plans for everyone. Okay, so go to patriotmobile.com/Sarah. You'll get free activation when you use the offer code Sarah. They're going to make switching very easy. You can keep your phone or you can upgrade. You can keep your number or you can change it. Whatever the case may be, they've got something for you over at patriotmobile.com/Sarah. Well, I just showed you the insurrectionists of college campuses. We're just going to call this the Insurrectionist Show. Welcome to the program. Steve Baker, of course, Blaze's investigative reporter, along with Adam Johnson, who is back in town. You know him as the Lectern Guy. And we're going to have fun. It's just going to be a bunch of insurrectionists hanging out. I just want to make it, I wasn't there that day. Okay. I want to make it clear. I wasn't there that day. You don't need to tap my phone. Okay. I wasn't there.
Well, if they read your phone, they know that you're an honorary insurrectionist at the very least.
That's true. That's true. You're like, yeah, but you surround yourself with too many insurrectionists. So we're just going to deem you one of those. So I'm glad you guys are here. So I want to kind of continue on the conversation that I was just having with Anthony Cabassa about all of these protests as these are popping up across the country, not just at college campuses, but just everywhere, seemingly. We heard a report last night that the Biden administration is considering giving Gaza refugees permanent safe haven under the United States Refugee Admissions Program. Now, there is certain criteria. Okay, they say eligible participants must have immediate family members currently living in the United States who are either citizens or permanent residents, and they would have to pass a series of screenings, but would then be able to obtain resettlement benefits, including housing assistance and a pathway to American citizenship. What could possibly go wrong?
I don't know, but I think they ought to house them at the college dorms. Because first of all, they should be sending these students home.
Right.
What they're doing right now, they should be terminating their, and by all means, do not refund their tuition.
Right.
Start there, and then if they're going to give them beds, I know what beds to give them.
Yeah.
Put them there. But what can go wrong? Everything. This is not the way this is to be done. There is a reason why even the Arab world won't accept Palestinians across their own borders.
Right.
There is a reason for that. It's because it always goes wrong for them, whether it's in Jordan or anywhere else. And we already have these problems here. We already have no-go zones in Minneapolis and in Dearborn, Michigan. And if you don't believe that they are no-go zones, well, you know what I do. I talk to law enforcement and I talk to Minneapolis police officers, and they have neighborhoods they don't go into except when it's time to scrape up a body.
Wow.
Otherwise, they administrate their own set of laws inside those no-go zones. And every once in a while, the cops will get a call that they've got to go pick something, a former human up, and that's the only reason they go into those neighborhoods. And that's what they're going to create for our country if they do this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a really bad idea, to Steve's point. If it's like all of the Arab countries don't want them because they're like, they're kind of a little bit too terroristy for us, and America's like, you know what? Come on in. That's fine.
I don't think America's asking for it. And I think what we continue to see from this administration is who is asking for the things that are being passed? Who is asking for this policy? Because it's not Americans. Right. It's not the people who live here and exist here and have to live with the policies that are being passed. Mm-hmm. And on top of this, maybe the ones who are humanitarian and like, no, we should help them, send them there. Send them to Martha Vineyard. Send them to the Hamptons. Send them to the people who are happy to have them put a sign out front and say, I did my part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so I agree with everything that you guys are saying. It's just there are so many layers to how bad of a problem this could be. One of the other ones is how much are we already spending on illegals coming through the southern border? How much is our economy already being drained by bringing in all of these people and then offering them assistance, right? Some form of economic assistance. Well, here, if they don't do Steve's plan and house them in all of these colleges, which I don't think they're going to, we're on the hook for all of this. So it's like, how many more handouts can we really give all of these newcomers, they call them, before we're like, oh, wait, now we're all broke?
I just want to see a reality TV show where they have to go through a diversity, equity, inclusion classes. Just a bunch of Palestinians sitting down and then teaching them, no, actually, men do have breasts and women do have balls.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I played a clip earlier of the spokesperson at Columbia for the protesters who were like, we demand food and drink because we pay for the dining plans, which... if your lazy asses just walked over to the dining hall, you could go get all of your food and water. But there was a guy standing behind her. I'm sure you guys have seen this. There was a guy standing behind her, and he was like, he was rocking this little cutoff shirt, crop top that he raided his little sister's drawer. And I'm just saying, there he is. I'm just saying.
Perfect.
Go into Palestine go into Gaza, I should say, looking like that. And see what happens to you.
Yeah, go protest on top of a rooftop and see what happens.
See what happens to you. You might lose your footing. It's all I'm saying. And then you might find that there are people behind you that just pushed you. And it's just so annoying to me and obnoxious that you watch these people and you're like, you would not survive. You would not survive. You would also not survive. They would assassinate all of you. They don't like you. Why are you fighting for them?
The incredible part about her statement, and the key words there, was she was demanding humanitarian aid. Now, her fall intellectualism was on full display right there. And actually, one of the MSM, or one of the reporters there, actually called her out on it and said, wait a minute, this is your choice to isolate, barricade yourself in, and whatever. You could just leave and go down to the hot dog stand down the road. Right. There's plenty of street meat in New York City, everywhere.
Yeah.
But humanitarian aid.
Right. You watch these videos of Gen Z and you're like, we're doomed. We are doomed. What are you guys going to do for us? You're not running any companies. You're going and getting your meal on your dining plan humanitarian aid. We are screwed.
And with what her parents paid for her to be there to begin with.
Yes. I know.
She has probably a $15,000 limit on her dad's credit card anyway.
Right.
She can have whatever she wants.
Yeah.
But this shows again this whole mindset, as you said, of this particular age group, is that they just expect even those who have wealth, they still expect that entitlement. Oh, wait a minute. I'm doing this to myself, but you need to pay for it.
Yeah, I think in a true civil rights, movement, you're not, if you're the good guys, you're not checking people's ethnicity status. And, if you are from Israel, you don't get a wristband. But if you are pro-Palestinian, you get a wristband and you're allowed entry. I don't think the last time all of this happened, I don't think those were the good guys. I'm not great with history, okay? I'm not a historian, but I seem to recall that going very poorly the last time that we, put like stars, on top of houses and stuff. I just feel like that went very poorly.
Well, at the end of it, they're not asking for humanitarian aid, are they? They're asking for war. That is what they're really asking for. So everything is kind of veiled in this, you're being mean to us and you're doing awful things. Well, what is the solution that allow you to continue to do what you're doing and want to do? We've seen your charters. We see what the end result of what your product, what your ideal world looks like. Mm-hmm. You're asking for war is what you're asking, not humanitarian aid.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
They are calling for war. They're saying it in their chants. They're calling for intifada. Do they even know what it means? I mean, it's not a Middle Eastern delicacy.
I think I don't know if that was a rhetorical question or not, Steve, but I actually don't think they know what it means. I think they're probably, if I had to put a percentage on it, I would guess at least 80% of them have absolutely no idea what that means, because we've seen the videos of these protesters who show up at these campuses and they're like, literally on video saying, I don't actually know if my university did anything. I just was told to come show up and show support. And so that's what I did. And I'm like, wow, you guys really have, it's just sheep. It's just useful idiots who are like, we're chanting the thing that other people in front of us are chanting.
I think we've sold it as part of the college experience too, though. I mean, we've had protests at colleges forever. And if you're not angry about the world and angry about something, they're not doing college right.
Right. All right. So let's go ahead, and I want to take a quick break, and then I want to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene's plans to call a motion to vacate the speaker when we come back. So MTG was joined by Thomas Massie on the steps of the Capitol this morning, and she announced plans to formally bring up her motion to vacate Speaker Mike Johnson next week. Watch.
I think the American people need to see a recorded vote of does the members of Congress support the uniparty? Is this what they support? I think every member of Congress needs to take that vote and let the chips fall where they may. And so next week, I am going to be calling this motion to vacate. Absolutely calling it. I can't wait to see Democrats go out and support a Republican speaker and have to go home to their primaries and have to run for Congress again, having supported a Republican speaker, a Christian conservative. I think that'll play well. I'm excited about it.
So the speaker was stopped by a reporter after she made this announcement, and the reporter asked him to respond to Marjorie Taylor Greene, and here's what he said.
Do you have any response to Marjorie Taylor Greene saying she'll call the motion to vacate vote next week?
It's wrong for the Republican conference, wrong for the institution, wrong for the country. Thank you. Okay.
I mean, look, this is Sara Gonzales' opinion, not yours, but like, of course, the person who is speaker would be like, it's wrong for America. It's wrong for everything. It's wrong for the way things you're the speaker. You don't want the power stripped. We got it. So I'm not putting too much weight in that. So what are your thoughts, gentlemen?
I don't even know where to begin, because if I began with MTG, this wouldn't end well right here. I mean, just start there. I mean, she is not the intellectual giant of the conservative movement or of the GOP. Let's just start with that reality. And then you move over to the fact that she is being supported in this motion to vacate by my favorite congressman, which is, Thomas Massie.
Yeah.
And I met with him last week. We got into this a little bit of a discussion on it. And then you throw into the mix that Mike Johnson, who I've met with twice, and We're from the same hometown, Shreveport, Louisiana. We have mutual friends that, in his case, our other friend's case, are very close to Speaker Johnson. And all of us in our personal conversations about the speaker right now, we don't even know what to say. We don't know what to do. But I will tell you this. I asked another congressman, and even Massey, I think, verified this morning on Glenn's show, is that I asked the same question, is he compromised? And by compromise, who has something over on him? And they all say, we don't think so. We think he is a good man, but whoever he is taking counsel from right now, he came in with a very small staff. He was not prepared. He's certainly drinking from a fire hose right now. If I threw out my own personal opinion, I would just say he's in over his head. Wasn't prepared for this position. And he came in with a very small staff. Obviously, the deep state, the swamp brought in and surrounded him with the people they needed to influence direction. And I think that's where we're at with it. It may be no more complicated than that, but I'm not the one to go to a conspiracy theory first.
Yeah, that's fair. I am, but that's fair.
I think history is not that long ago when Kevin McCarthy was ousted. So we know that the motion to vacate has been exercised and has been followed through with. Mike Johnson just voted to fund at least 2 more wars, right? And this is very uniparty.
Foreign wars, let's be clear.
Yes. And this is not what, again, the American people, who's asking for this?
Right.
People can't afford their rent and their groceries. I've got a bunch of kids. We said this last time. My grocery bill is almost $3,000 a month. So I can't imagine what people are paying. And I don't know how they're making it.
Gold?
Oh, I still eat a bunch of steak because what am I going to do? Not eat steak? But he just watched this happen, and then he did the exact same thing that McCarthy was doing. He had to have known this was coming. So for me, it at least says that either he is uniparty or he is compromised.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It could be so much as trusting the wrong people, because it's happened before. Even with Donald Trump, right? Like sometimes for as much as he likes to say he has the best people around him, sometimes we have seen that he doesn't, and he gets influenced by the wrong people and says the wrong thing. And so it could be that. But it's hard for me to comprehend how you can know as a speaker that you have come out there multiple times and said, we have to have meaningful border security. We have to do that, but that is the priority. We have to do that before we talk about anything else. Nothing is on the table until we have meaningful border security, over and over and over again. And then be like, yeah, you know what? It turns out that wasn't so important after all, and we're going to go ahead and fund these 2 foreign, wars first. He seems intelligent, right? And I'm like, I don't understand how you think that you can overcome a complete reversal on something that is Americans' number one priority, Democrat or Republican. We're seeing the top concern for Americans is border security. So to think that you can say all of that and then walk away from it and completely reverse yourself, I can't even comprehend how he could think that he would get away with that.
It's mind-boggling, actually. He was actually teed up to be a hero to the conservative Republican grassroots. He was. I mean, it was his for the taking, and we would have all jumped in behind him. And as it is right now, I mean. And I think before he was speaker, his liberty rating score was like 72%. So it's not great. Right. It meant he was a compromiser, and he voted with the Democrats 28% of the time. Right. But
he was a little higher than McCarthy.
It was 20 points higher than McCarthy's. McCarthy was, like 50-50. Yeah. And so he had room to improve, but maybe we had the evidence. Maybe if somebody's in the low 70s, they just shouldn't be trusted to begin with. I don't know.
We get power, right? Conservatives get power. They are elected by the people to have the power. And then what do they do with it? Nothing. Jack squat. Send your money over to Ukraine. And again, I stand with Israel. Does that mean that I want to fund their war? No, not right now, especially not right now when we can't even afford, as Adam was talking about earlier, people can't afford their groceries. They can't afford their household supplies. I'm not in favor of sending all of my money to all of these foreign entities. And so it's just so frustrating to see these people get elected, get into power, and then just piss it away. Just piss it away. You know what? We'll just vote we'll just vote with the other side. We love bipartisanship. Why? What is the point of putting you in power if you're just going to vote with the minority all the time? It drives me bonkers. I don't get it. It's so frustrating about Republicans. It's just spineless. So on the topic of border security, I want to go through really quickly. The Department of Homeland Security revealed recently that it sent over 200,000 migrants on, it says it in the article, illegal aliens. Stop putting that for me to read. I don't want to call them migrants. Illegal aliens on a controversial parole program to 45 cities across the United States between January and August 2023. And so I believe the Daily Mail was the one who went through and put in the top cities, the top 10 cities. So I want to go over them. But this is, of course, illegals are allowed to fly directly into America. Just don't even show up at the border. It's fine. You just fly directly in, hopefully first class, because we wouldn't want them to feel like they're less than, right? So around 80% of the illegal immigrants were sent to 4 cities in the state of Florida. Miami, who got 91,821. Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Tampa Bay. Let's see these other ones here. So Miami is at the top. Fort Lauderdale, 60,000. New York, almost 15,000. Houston, almost 8,000. Orlando, 6,000. Los Angeles, 3,000. Tampa, 3,200. Dallas, 2,200. San Francisco, 2,000. Atlanta, 1,796. So, guys, this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. Miami, are you joking? Almost 100,000 new residents.
Do you really believe that Florida being at the top of this list is a coincidence?
No.
Of course it's not.
No.
No, the one governor in this country who is almost doing everything right is where they're sending the extra votes.
Right. Which, please, it's not like they're trying to get him to vote or anything. That's just a crazy conspiracy theory. And Steve doesn't like those, but I do, which is why I talk about it all the time, which is, of course, there is a method, a plan in place to bring these people in. And if you want to believe, they're not trying to get them to directly vote. Okay, that's fine. But where are they going? They're going to these Democrat-leaning or heavily Democrat areas, where they're going to set up shop in, the sanctuary city near them. And then next time the census rolls around and they start, looking at everyone, they count in those numbers. So then those places will get more representation in Congress to vote left. That's how you rig the system, which is exactly what they're doing.
They had to counteract Miami-Dade because, in the last election, Miami-Dade went Republican by 12%.
Yes, it did.
The most Republican large city in America.
Right.
They had to stock up on the illegals there.
Right.
Well, it's a product of states are becoming deeper red and deeper blue because people are living where they want to be free or want to be ruled.
Yeah. And
Florida's a place where we live very, very free. I love my governor. I'm from Florida. I love my governor. And he does such a fantastic job where we live. And I think it's exactly that. I think they're taking these places where maybe they used to be like blue county here, blue county there. I think they're trying to make things more purple again, if not just blue.
Just blue, yeah. Speaking of DeSantis, did I just read that he just banned lab-grown meat in the state of Florida? I think I just read that. If so,
put it on the list.
Okay, they're telling me in the control room, yes. That's epic. We need a federal ban on that. I was like, yes. So he's just doing amazing things. I'm actually jealous, and I will say Florida is out Texasing Texas, which I don't appreciate. Thanks a lot, Adam. All right, when we get back, let's talk J6. I've got you guys here. Okay, let's talk J6 when we return. John Earl Sullivan, who is a Utah man, who recorded himself on January 6th inside the Capitol, was sentenced Friday to 6 years in prison. Now, I want to read, this is, of course, a Washington Post headline, so I want to read how the Washington Post characterizes this, okay? It says a Utah man who recorded himself inciting violence and breaking a window before filming the fatal shooting of Ashley Babbitt outside the House chamber during the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack was sentenced Friday to 6 years in prison. Now, I'd just like to ask Steve Baker, who was there and has been talking about this extensively on social media, is that so?
Some of that is so. I mean, John Sullivan is easily in the top 5, maybe top 3 most interesting characters that day.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the guy that had brought with him the label of BLM, Antifa. He has been since accused of being a Fed operative of some sort. His family has been mischaracterized terribly. His father happens to share the same name of an Air Force general who was involved in intelligence operations, whereas his father is actually a retired lieutenant colonel in the Army and not the guy that was involved in intel. So you can see where all of the people like you like to jump in now and make a grand conspiracy out of it.
Absolutely.
But he did say some scary words. He said some very insightful things. He was trying to, I'm not going to quote him and use the exact language he used inside the Capitol, but he wanted to F things up. And he said very clearly that he wanted to incite MAGA to burn this down. Mm-hmm. And so he did have this kind of language. Now, the whole time he was doing this, he was being filmed by another person, a documentarian by the name of Jade Sacker, who was doing a documentary on him and his brother. They were the white sheep, black sheep in the family kind of situation where they were, one guy had become the activist Republican.
You hate to be featured as the black sheep in a documentary.
Well, in their case, they're 2 black adopted children into a white Mormon family, and so the brothers were bitter rivals. They're not blood brothers. They were adopted separately from different parentage, and bitter rivals. One went to the left, one went to the right. This girl found out their story, started doing a documentary on them. She followed John Sullivan there, and then everything escalates, and the story, explodes and goes in all different conspiratorial directions from that point. And I actually believed most of that for well over 2 years until I started diving in, started interviewing the brothers, started interviewing the parents, started following the facts on the ground, started seeing all of the video. When people, I challenge anybody out there that if you thought you saw John Sullivan on the Capitol campus that day wearing a Trump hat, and you text me, X me, call me, or otherwise criticize me and say, I saw that with my own eyes. No, you didn't. You didn't.
It wasn't him.
No, it wasn't him. And I have had people just in the last few days since his sentencing sending me photos of other black men wearing a MAGA hat. And I'm like, no, that's not John Sullivan.
That's awkward.
Thanks for yes, it is awkward. But this is what people have been plied with by the grifters, the J6 conspiratorialists, the people that are making a living, making a money about blowing this thing up bigger than. Look, it's big. It's big enough on its own.
Right.
You know as well or better than anybody how impactful this is on people's individual lives, and in Sullivan's case. And we won't take the whole segment here to let me just ramble on, but I'll just rant for one more second here.
Please.
Is that 98% of what everybody out there thinks that they know about Sullivan is not true, and that doesn't take away from the bad things he said,
right,
from the bad things he did, the stuff that he did long before January 6th, the stuff he did on that day, the stuff that he said after. It's all on the record. He said these things. Now, is he even telling the truth about himself? Is he even, when I interviewed his brother lied to me. The GOP brother, the Republican activist, told me a string of lies that I've been able to invalidate just by the video. I don't need somebody else to contradict him, but when you have access to unlimited amount of video to watch these guys and watch their behavior from morning till the end of the evening, and you find out, Sullivan was not leading 200 Antifa people on January 6th. Yeah. He was a lone wolf with a young girl, Jade Sacker, following him around with a camera to document that, and he made the most of it by being loud, boisterous, scary words, insightful, because he was trying to make his bones as an activist in that space.
Now, see, I, for one, am surprised that there's misinformation concerning January 6th.
I'm
This
sure
is the first
you
time
are.
learning this.
Yeah.
That there are things that we hear that aren't true.
Right. Well, we know that you stole, government property and took it home with you, right?
I got a plane seat for it. I tucked it in and everything. And every night I wax it one more time just to make sure it stays in good condition.
I am watching you with all of this stuff, all of this furniture here on this set. I've got my eye on you, Adam.
That's
you're a
understandable. I've got a
thief.
history. Yeah.
We're just still trying to figure out if we can even legally be in the same room together at this point. So
We're all going to find out now. So then I guess I'm not going to push back, but I'm just devil's advocate here. I think that it's hard for people because there have been so many questions about whether the feds were involved, to what extent the feds were involved, all of the hearings where they couldn't directly answer questions on how many federal assets they had in the crowd inciting them, and all the stuff about Ray-ups, that I think the one thing that remains certain is that the American people have absolutely no reason to trust that their government is telling them the truth. And that's where you get all of the crazy conspiracy theories and distrust.
you're exactly right.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I've dedicated my life to proving that what they are doing to these January 6th defendants is absolutely immoral, illegal. It is evil.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are not telling us the truth.
Yeah.
But not every single rock has a demon underneath it.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
I think the point of a lot of the misinformation is to get people confused about what actually happened that day. There are a lot of people who showed up to a protest, they walked in a building, and they went to prison for it. For doing nothing more than exercising their First Amendment rights.
Right.
And they keep throwing the misinformation out here because they want to keep people in the dark about it.
Amen. Amen. We got to go to a quick break. We'll be right back. Steve, you mentioned a great point. I want you to go ahead and repeat on air.
Well, it's important for everyone to focus on what he got sentenced for. For scary words, he got sentenced to 6 years in prison, whereas other January 6th defendants who did actual violence, actually assaulted law enforcement officers, didn't get that much.
Why?
Because all of January 6th is about scary words. If you're Stuart Rhodes, you got 18 years because you supported the president in evoking the Insurrection Act.
Yeah.
Well, the president didn't, so
Right.
Rhodes didn't do anything.
Right.
He didn't carry any weapons into the district. He didn't go into the building, and he didn't order his Oath Keepers to attack Congress.
So about scary words and also embarrassing pictures. Looking at you, Adam.
It's embarrassing them. That's what the picture does.
Yeah.
It's they do not like to be made fun of. They
Oh,
don't
yeah, I
like
didn't
to be
mean
mocked.
embarrassing to you.
Yeah, I love that picture. I think it's
It's
hilarious.
iconic.
I think it's hilarious.
It is. He says this. Which, by the way, if you guys haven't seen, Adam is doing like a Capitol tour.
I am.
And he was there in D.C. Tell them what the shirt said.
Oh, the shirt said, I visited the Capitol and all I got was solitary confinement.
So good. I didn't get solitary confinement, but I still want one. It's so good. Gentlemen, thank you guys for being here.